I'm going to keep talking to myself, not every day, but whenever, just for the sake of continuation of the journey. And mainly what I do lately is wake up, shower, but I didn't this morning, and then leave the house and do whatever, wander around. And I'm finding that I'm losing any sense of being able to create a routine because I don't have a home that's fully equipped with everything I need to make a routine, like a kitchen. So I'm spending way too much money eating at restaurants. Yesterday I spent $25 on dinner, I spent $10 on coffee and ice cream, and that was it. But that's a lot. $35 a day, that could almost pay rent. So yeah, I need to be better about that. But I'm also enjoying hanging out with friends when I'm with friends, and usually we'll eat at a restaurant or something. So it's not bad, but it's not sustainable. But I am planning to leave in a month or so anyway, so it's just sort of the cost of not having a kitchen. And I am getting a sense of what it is like to live just having a place to sleep and shower, which is enough in the summertime. In the wintertime, it wouldn't really be good. It wouldn't work out because I don't want to stay there during the day. And so I'm just heating up some waffles at someone else's house, and then I'm gonna go spend a day in the sun. Yesterday I went for a hike and then laid at a park and then went for dinner and then watched a movie. I watched the Stanford Prison Experiment, which was interesting, and I recognized the name of the experimenter right away when their name was said in the beginning of the movie, and it's because I watched a TED Talk by the same guy who's now 85, and he's all about creating heroes, and he's very positive, and he talks about evil versus being a hero, and he talks about the bystander effect, where we all sort of stand around watching something happen until one person starts doing something, like in an emergency, and then everyone starts to jump in and help. So he said, be the first one, or something like that. So he raised some great points in his TED Talk, which I watched again. And yeah, I really feel like I've been spending months and months in this whole feeling of real self-centered, self-pity problems. And they're not even really that big of problems. I'm creating those problems, and I see that. But what I'm confused about for me is that I'm sort of trying to stay away from certain energies because I have been away from those energies. And it's nobody's fault. It literally, this sort of keeps us all in the perspective of being self-centered, because what I'm realizing is I don't really need very much, but not to be in an environment where there could be violence or what have you. I'm gonna go check on my waffles. all I'm trying to say is that I'm finding that having a safe epigesturetic matrix is really important. And the thing is, it's not necessarily about feeling safe from others per se, but I don't feel safe within myself to act my best around certain people. Around strangers, I'm fine, but around certain people, I'm not necessarily fine, and they're not necessarily fine. So it's about I don't trust myself to manifest as the best version of myself. So I'd rather be around those types of situations where that's the most possible. And I know there's stuff that can be done to fix that other scenario, but I don't think it can be fixed while living in the same space. It's not safe, because if I want to get away, there's nowhere to go. So yeah, it's kind of challenging. So for me, this next month or so before I leave, it'll be challenging, and it is a challenge, and it's interesting timing in that I no longer have help from the mental health system. I'm sort of left to my own devices and feeling my vulnerabilities and inadequacies as a person, but then still this is the way it is, and I need to try to navigate it the best I can, and I'm not doing a very good job. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I might see if my brain twin can come and visit, and I'm going to try and do some reading in the next few weeks, just read some of the old books that were helpful, because I know the only thing I can change is myself. I can't try to change other people. But the thing is, with this bipolar energy, sometimes there's a lot of energy in that does change other people in a good way. It changes everything in a good way. But we just can't really sustain it together. So it's not safe to just allow all that love and wonderful energy to flow, because it gets misinterpreted or it gets squashed. And I'm okay with that. It's just kind of painful to have to start again. It's hard to explain these things, but it's all a learning process, and I'm learning. And in terms of the supplements, on the days where I need to go to sleep earlier, I don't take a tyrosine or SAM-E or methylfolate. But on the days where I have to wake up a bit earlier, so I didn't get a full 12 hours or something, and I'm going to be up longer, over 12 hours, I take tyrosine, methylfolate, and SAM-E. And those give me a bit of a boost where I feel some energy. And some days I'm only up for like 8 or 9 hours because I slept so long, and I need to get to sleep a bit earlier in order to wake up for an earlier day. Like today I woke up at 11, but I want to try to go to sleep at 9 p.m. because I have an appointment to drop off my car at 7 a.m. So I'll be able to make myself go to sleep with the meds, but tomorrow would be a day where I would take tyrosine and SAM-E, methylfolate. And I've been doing half a zopiclone at night. Some friends told me about a med called Nausenan, which is an antipsychotic, but I think at low doses it helps with sleep, and it's not really addictive. I don't necessarily want to take another antipsychotic, but I also know that I have to sleep, because since those few days of not sleeping a couple weeks ago and now being able to sleep, I don't feel as agitated, or like I feel quite a bit better. And I don't really have, like, I think that energy is there right now, and that's why when I wake up I feel kind of fine, even though I just took half a zopiclone, 2 Benadryl, 75 milligrams of trazodone, and 62 and a half milligrams of quetiapine. So that's quite a bit, but I wake up feeling mostly fine. And today I'll just have a little coffee because I do really enjoy coffee right now. So it's sort of counterintuitive to boost oneself up and then need to drug oneself to go to sleep. But I wasn't drinking coffee for a long time, and then I wasn't able to sleep anyway. So I'm gonna go check on my other waffle. What I do hope this illustrates for people after some time, because this is sort of for me, an uninteresting period of time. It's like me whining about my life situation when I have food, I have clothes, I have shelter. It's more just not feeling emotional safety, whatever that means. Or epigesturetic safety, feeling like I'll be gestured in ways that I don't want. And if you take that to the extreme, that's sort of what happens when people get to the point where they feel like they can't control themselves, and they end up doing something that gets them put in the psych ward, or they feel like they're going to hurt themselves or others. Or, that's often how people end up in the psych ward. That's how I've ended up in the psych ward like 6 times. So I really don't know what talking to myself daily is showing. I've tried to prove different things to myself and they've all failed. So maybe continuing to go on no matter what. Even a little while ago, felt like I kind of wanted to give up. And in my mind lately, I do have, if this next phase fails of going to California and I come back and I get trapped again, maybe I will just make my way out of this reality. It's a belief system that we have to go on, that we have to continue. I don't think it's true. So I'll keep going for now. Because I feel more, lately, I've gotten to experience the ego's subtle movement of wanting to do something to draw attention to itself. Which isn't bad, it's just sort of how it is. So, for example, I could think I want to kill myself so people will feel bad. But I don't feel that. I just feel like maybe I'm just kind of done with this world, and maybe that's okay. It's not like, oh, I want to do that so these people will be sad that I'm gone. That's not how I feel. But I think that's part of detaching myself from some of my attachments. Like right now, I feel like I could leave the area where I've grown up and everything and never come back. That's how I feel now. That could change, like everything else has. But I sort of feel like the way I manifest here isn't the way that I want to manifest. So, and I've experienced other places where I manifest in a way that I like better. Because I don't know if there is really any control of how one manifests per se. And I feel like the system in which we grow up, like the different dynamics in which we grow up, become kind of a prison. It feels more like of a prison right now. Now, if I really thought I was in prison, I'd probably be afraid and I'd run for it. But it feels more like, okay, I need to logically, rationally get myself out of this prison. And then if I were to be able to, I wouldn't walk myself back into it. But that's what I do. And this could all be a misinterpretation from my perspective of not having a living situation that feels congruent for me. Like, have my own kitchen, be able to make healthy food, feel healthier, get back to being healthier. I've been kind of just doing random for a year and a half. And it's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of finding out who one is and what one wants in one's own life for oneself. And I was going to do that course with the Enlightened Master, but it's like $500, and then there's another course when he visits, which is like $1,200 American dollars. And I just feel like it could be really awesome, but at the same time, that's a lot of money that I don't have. Speaking of money that I don't have, the universe sent me a line of credit offer that I accepted. So I do have access to some funds, which I think will be helpful because when I come back here, if I come back, I need to set up my own space no matter what. Don't forget that. So yeah, I'm going to go enjoy California hopefully, and then maybe come back. Maybe I'll meet someone down there. That's not my goal, but maybe I'll meet someone and stay down there. Anything is possible. And I have had subtle insights in the last few weeks, but I haven't talked about them and they're kind of gone, which is okay. But I was sort of having one yesterday about relationship and how we exist in relationship, and when certain relationships are strained, then that's when I manifest as I don't want to. And I hope that this shows that when I get back, if I come back and I have my own space, I can have better relationships with those relationships that are feeling strained because of living in close proximity. And I always felt early on that the fact that I moved to supported housing was like so big for getting better. And now that I'm living the way I am now, I see that that was absolutely true. I sort of felt that before, but now I know. And the difference is in a way that this time I will get myself out of there and not revert to a psychiatric system to getting myself out of there. I'll leave under my own volition. Because, you know, money isn't the main currency, so it might feel like it's less expensive, but it's not, because what I've said about food costs. It's not. So my main thing is that I'm going away, so there's no point in moving right now, but I will. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and it's not that interesting, and this is sort of the same thing that will be going on for the next month or so. Unless my brain twin comes to visit, then that might be kind of interesting. So, now I've had my waffles, and I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to get a coffee, I'm going to get gasoline, and I'm going to go to the park and get some sun. I haven't really been getting sun and walking and stuff, and I think getting some sun and then finding some fresh local blueberries and eating blueberries or something to cleanse. I've eaten a lot of junk food, and it's interesting how I can maintain it pretty well. I don't crave the junk, it's just what I'm eating, and it's not really affecting me that much. Like, I used to feel really affected by unhealthy stuff, and now I'm like taking all these meds, I'm eating all this crappy food, and I still feel okay. So there's something about transcending the material world and cause and effect of those types of things. And I don't really feel that so much anymore like I used to, though I do know that it'll be helpful one day to show the difference of being really healthy, because I haven't really been talking to myself when I've been feeling really healthy. It was before 2 years ago, like 2.5 years ago, when I was probably at my healthiest, and I wasn't talking to myself then. So yeah, it'll be cool to eventually show having a nice space and getting healthy, and maybe helping people with getting healthy and stuff like that, because that's one of the main things that we struggle with, is sometimes weight and health. And when we can fix that, a lot of other things tend to fall into place. You know, maybe I'll go back to school and study some kind of nutrition or something. I don't know. Anything's possible. So yeah. I'm reading Practicing the Power of Now, and I've listened to the audio before. I've read The Power of Now, and it was the most powerful book I ever read. And it's what spurred me on to read probably 100 or so books of its kind afterwards. But I like this part on page 10. It says, many of those passages are particularly suitable for meditative reading. When you practice meditative reading, you do not read primarily to gather new information, but to enter a different state of consciousness as you read. Only words that were written or spoken in a state of presence have this transformative power, which is the power to awaken presence in the reader. So I like that, and that's sort of why I'm wanting to possibly read a bit lately, is to read books with that type of transformative power, because my mind is preoccupied with certain beliefs that are only situationally true, and they're not even true, and I realize they're not true. And that's why I'm wondering about some of these beliefs as needing to be transcended at the level of attachment, not at the level of, okay, I'm going to try to think of positive beliefs, but taking the so-called intolerance of certain situations as a clue or sign to change the situation, not to change the beliefs. That can be done too, but I think I'd rather change my situation than the beliefs are just not even there. And I've experienced that in the past. So I could try really hard to change my beliefs, or I could change the situation. And I'm planning to change the situation. So I don't really want to work on the beliefs too much. But by reading some of these transformative things, that will change my consciousness into a more positive state. If I was sitting around with an enlightened master 24/7, I wouldn't need to do this. But this is a way to bring some of the masterful people back into my life. And I've read many of them before, but I'm sort of forgetting So yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm going to read. And I'm also reading more of this. Dr. David Hawkins is really awesome and helpful. And Loving What Is by Byron Katie as well. And getting some vitamin D. I haven't done this in a while, for sure. And I got my coffee. The unhealthiness continues. My car's getting fixed, and they already called me and informed me that last time when they fixed the windshield, they put in an aftermarket windshield, which could be the reason why the lane departure feature isn't working. So I don't know about that, and I'm not really happy that they installed something that possibly jeopardized my safety and the safety of others. It wasn't them, but they sent it to a glass shop, and that's what the glass shop did. So I'll find out about that later, I guess. And I just saw a Tesla, one of the new ones that is not as expensive. That's the first one I've ever seen. I can't remember what it's called, what model it is, but it was definitely the smaller one with the computer screen in it. And also, speaking of this whole, it seems like subconsciously the ego wants to draw attention to itself. I was holding my phone and clicking it without even realizing it, and I was pressing the lock the home screen button, and I have it set up for emergency SOS. So if you press it 5 times in a row, I've never done it, but it starts to call emergency, and then I also have it set up so people who are my emergency contacts in my medical ID app get notified where I am. So all of a sudden I'm walking and the phone starts going weird, weird. I was like, what the heck? I look at it and it's counting down to when it's gonna do the emergency SOS thing. And I was like, holy crap. And I stopped it with 1 second to go. Like, this is what I mean by it wants to create a scene or draw attention to itself. And that's what happened in October when a friend of mine ended up alerting the authorities when I said I feel like I might end my life. And then the cops showed up. This last time I got away with not creating that kind of scene, besides like the dog attack. And so now it seems like subconsciously there's something that wants to draw my body back into the epigenetic matrix of the self, like through accident or subconscious movements of the body. It's really strange. And I got a phone call from somebody when I was doing that cleaning. They said, oh, do you do cleaning? And they wanted me to clean for them, which was strange. They got that information from the person I used to clean for, which that was a good gig, but I went into crappy states of consciousness and messed it up. That's how more got messed up last time in October, November, December, whereas this time I just tried not to have anything on the go that would get messed up. And that's a different strategy. There's less to explain to people when I have to stop doing things that I'm doing because all of a sudden I'm not doing well. So this way nobody really notices as much that I'm not doing well. But then these weird subconscious things happen, like my body just clicking away at the screen, at the lock screen button on my phone for no reason while walking with my phone in my hand, and almost setting off like an emergency call and sending off texts to the people in my emergency contacts. It's like, what the hell? And I feel less comfortable wandering around yesterday and today. I'd rather be around friends. And then yesterday, I went to this other park. I got a smoothie, went to a different park, just to chill. It's not as nice of a park. It's more noisy with traffic. And then this guy came to the dock where I was on a little lake, and he started smoking. And then he starts chatting me up, and then he's like asking me if I'm married, asking me if I'm single, asking me if I have a boyfriend. You know, it's just... And he says he goes there every day, morning and half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night. And I'm like, thanks for telling me. Now I never want to come back here. So it just sucks to like have to edit out places that one wants to be because somebody goes there and is lonely. I said I wasn't married, but I did say I have a boyfriend, which isn't true. And he still asked for my number. And then I was reading a study today unrelated to that, and it said something about how men interpret smiles as maybe they want to have sex, and it's just not true. So maybe I'll stop smiling at men. I don't really have a problem smiling at men, but I don't want to give them the wrong information. When apparently a simple smile is the wrong information. So I was reading some interesting studies that I have from years ago. One I read was called The Evolution of Happiness, written in 2000 published in the American Psychologist by David Buss or something like that, and it had some really interesting points. It's talking about reciprocity and cooperation and making that a social norm instead of like egoic stuff. So I feel like we learn a bunch of that stuff in Mania, but we're not able to keep going with it because that's not the way the environment is designed. And it said something about knowing who your friends are when negative things happen or something, like this other thing I was reading. Or no, maybe it was the same one. And then kind of realizing that's partly why I feel resistant to my current environment, because when I've needed help at certain points over the years, I haven't had it. And that made me stronger, but it also makes me feel like those people aren't my friends. And a lot more, but I don't want to talk too long because I don't have a charger for my phone, and I need to have the phone call from the dealership to get my car. Yeah, I learned a bunch of interesting stuff by reading a few studies today. Well, one study and then part of another one. And then I'm reading this book on happy chemicals, and this was really interesting. They talked about a study in the Happy Chemicals book where they gave monkeys a reward of spinach for whatever. Spinach. And then later they changed the reward to juice. And eventually that juice didn't really give them a spike of dopamine, but after that they started giving them the reward of spinach again. And the monkeys reacted by throwing the spinach at the researchers and having bouts of rage. So to me, this relates to mania, because I'm looking for this mechanism by which we get really angry. So when we go into mania, basically it's like going into a world like the monkeys where you're getting juice for being in that world. And then when it starts to crash and one starts to be reconditioned and like family starts to come after us and grab us and throw us in the hospital, or the structures of society do, it's basically like now we're going back to getting rewarded by spinach. And we react with anger and rage because we went into a world that is like juice every moment, and new fresh juice, it never gets old. And then we come back to this world of what we have as designed for all of us, and it's like everyone gets spinach, and no wonder everyone's so miserable. But we react with anger and rage because of how we're being drawn into a world of a different reward system, that we've seen a different world, so that can never satisfy us again. Well, in general. So all of this stuff that happens to us is very scientific, and I see how it relates in everything that I read. And I'm starting to read now again a little bit, but I've already talked about most of this with myself without reading very much. It's basically what I talked about, how we have this scientific capacity of observation within us, and we're able to observe and learn in the moment. But we rely on others to tell us what to do and how to act, and patterns of action, because that's sort of how we're trained. And mania gets rid of that training, and we have the energy to perceive moment to moment. So anyway, there's a lot more to it, but pizza. I'm so tired of junk food, I feel sick. Today, I am on the hunt for blueberries because I've been eating so much restaurant food that I'm feeling blah. I don't know how much longer I can take it. So I'm gonna get blueberries for the day and see how that goes, because I'm not gonna say, hey, I'm gonna eat blueberries all the time, because whenever I do that, I forget, or I move on to something else, or some kind of mood of some sort dictates something else. And so here I go. I got my blueberries, and now I'm at my quiet park. I learned that they're going to be building a playground here, so it won't be quiet at this spot, at least. It'll be a lot busier. But that's not until next year. So yeah, yesterday was a busy day. I was sitting at Tim Hortons, sitting on the sidewalk, and it was noisy with cars, and then I went to the coffee shop and there's music playing, so it felt kind of overwhelming in terms of noise. And it felt quite nice to sleep in my totally dark room that is silent. And I woke up and I felt a little grumpy, but I think taking the tyrosine and the 200 milligrams of SAMe and 500 milligrams of uridine kind of helps to give me a bit of a boost. And I was able to clean my sink and do a few things. And today I'm gonna get some sun and then talk to my brain twin at around 6:30. And I think I'm gonna invite him to come up. So yeah, I have this idea to ask him, maybe after I get back from California next year, maybe he could come up here for a while and we could just like focus on creating something and just go with it. I don't know. And yesterday I made a lot of notes from what I was reading and studying, and when I read and I study, I feel like a lot of what I said to myself has a lot of truth to it. Not ultimate truth, but relatively true. So yeah, I'm gonna enjoy the sunshine for a bit and chat later. It's pizza time.